Hello everyone, this is Monica here from Needle and Paper, and today I want to show you how I put together this card from a previous image, this sunflower that I have previously colored. There is a full video of the coloring process that I'm going to link to this video. This is a stamp set from Studio Katia. It's called Sunshine of Hope, and it is a stamp that comes with so many beautiful sentiments, and also the die, the matching die for the actual sunflower. So I went ahead and used the die to cut my image. I ran it through my Gemini machine, and I cut two more from plain cardstock, and I glue all those pieces together. This is to add more firmness to the sunflower and also to add more dimension to the card. So I glued all those pieces together, and I usually put something heavy on top like a book or something like that and let it dry. I also wanted to add a lot of dimension because the card itself is very simple. I wanted all the attention to be on the sunflower. So the main panel, the front panel, or the main layer, the base layer, has two parts. And the first one is this. On this first piece of white cardstock, on plain white cardstock, I inked from the center outwards a few different shades of yellow. I believe I used a very light yellow, then I used this sort of mustard yellow, and then I used an orangey ink, and saturating from the center to the outer edges of the panel. For the second part of the panel, I use this dotted slimline dyeing set. This is just one part of the set, and I cut a piece of white cardstock, but I cut it a little bit wider than 4.5 or 4.25, and I cut it twice. So as you saw there, I put the dye right at the edge, and then I ran it, and then I slid it up to the other side, matching the holes, and I ran it again through the die cut machine. That left me with a wider piece of cardstock with this dotted pattern. Now I'm going to trim both panels, slightly smaller than an A2 card. So the yellow panel, that's how I called it, about 1/4 of an inch smaller than an A2 card, and then the dotted panel slightly smaller than the first one. For the sentiments, I had to go with the sentiments from these stamp sets because they are gorgeous, very uplifting. And at first I chose one, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna use this one. But then I said, well, no, I'm gonna go ahead and stamp them all, and that way I have sentiments for later on. But I used just a basic watermark ink because I thought I was gonna do them all in gold. And then last minute I decided to add black ink to two of them. So the rest of them, you're only gonna see two of them in black ink. Here I'm prepping my cardstock with anti-static powder. I highly recommend doing that. And then I'm stamping using my stamping tool, very handy. I had it stamped already here. When you see that, I had already stamped in the watermark, and now I'm adding the black ink to just two of them. So to those two, I'm going to add a clear embossing powder, and then to the rest of them, I'm going to add gold embossing powder. So here it's basically one step, one large piece of cardstock, and then you end up with a ton of sentiments. I almost wish we had the matching dies for these sentiments, but they're not very hard to cut at all. You can use a round die, you can use a rectangle, but you're gonna see what I did for mine. So once they were all set with my heating tool, I grabbed an X-Acto knife and a cutting pad and just went right through the edges where I wanted my, basically where I wanted my message or the sentiment to be outlined. This might take you a little bit longer, but it allows you to be really, really precise. If you don't have an X-Acto knife, just grab your scissors and do a little bit of fussy cutting, and it looks really pretty too. Or like I said before, You can use a rectangle die if you don't mind the edges. Really, there is no right or wrong when it comes to cutting the sentiments. These ended up with a little bit of an offset shape, but I actually like it like this. And like I said, you can always do even fussy cutting if you want. Then I added a little bit of ink to the edges to help the message to stand out more on against the white cardstock. And I added some foam tape in the back. I had previously added some foam tape strips on the back of the dotted panel, and I put it right on top in the center as much as I could of the yellow panel. I used sort of like a mustard yellow as a card base. I didn't want it to use more white. I thought this yellow will help the card to stand out a little bit more. And I added my two-piece front panel to it. And I tried to center it as much as I could. Then I went ahead and glued my image that at this point was nice and dry. Right in the center. The nice thing about using liquid glue is that you can wiggle it a little bit if you're not happy with the positioning. And here I'm checking out the amount of dimension that my card has. So I am going to peel off the back of my sentiment and grab my T-ruler just to make sure that it's well positioned, that it's centered. And as a final touch, I added a few pearls. These are green moss, also from Studio Katia, and they have a little bit of iridescence to it. It's really pretty, and it breaks out a little bit of the yellow from the panels and the actual flower. Well, friends, and this is it. Like I said, this was a very easy card to put together. I honestly wanted all the attention on the sunflower itself. And you can always refer to my previous video for the coloring process. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.